All right, cool. Let's come up in five, four, three, two.
Welcome back to 755 is Real. I'm David O'Brien, Braves writer for The Athletic, with Eric O'Flaherty, former Braves reliever, my co-host. He's out in Walla Walla, Washington. He's doing up the town in Walla Walla. What's up, man? What's up, Eric?
Nothing. I like this recording time a little better. I'm awake today. Those early ones are tough.
It's not still dark out there, huh?
No, it's good. Midday.
It'll be dark here real soon. Well, not real soon. I got time to mow the lawn, actually, with the daylight savings time. Man, things have changed since we had this. Only 2 games, but a lot of development since the last time we talked. Some mostly good. The biggest, obviously, was our gut feelings were right. Neither one of us thought that Acuna was probably very serious, or he wouldn't have stayed in the game and slid and all that. And it wasn't. It was he did an MRI Monday in New York, and all it was a mild abdominal strain, which was the news the Braves could possibly have heard, because, as we talked about, you don't even want to think about this offense without him right now. So he missed the 2 games in New York against the Yankees, got 4 days of rest with the off day on either side of that series, and he should be good to go Friday for the series opener against the D-Backs.
They said he's good?
Yeah, he's feeling much better and hit off a tee, and they didn't want to risk it, even pinch hitting Wednesday night it was cold in New York Wednesday night, or chilly at least. And they just didn't, with another off day Thursday, they thought, yeah, let's give him the full days.
You could give him 4 days with only missing 2 games. Exactly. Why not?
Yeah. That's pretty good. They got really lucky with the scheduling too.
Yeah.
They only missed 2 games against the Yankees, and they won one of them. So, all things considered, with all the doom and gloom that's around, they went 3-2 on this trip. They won a series against the Cubs, split with the Yankees, and they're a game and a half out of first place.
Nobody in the division's winning.
You'd never know it in this town, man, on social media. And I understand, because with all the injuries and some bad losses, it's not just your record, as you know, it's how you got to that. It's the way you're
playing, how you're losing games.
Right.
But I think that's almost encouraging in a sense that when you watch them, you feel like they're playing like shit, for them, for their team, and to only be a couple games out, or 8-10, whatever they are, it's like, it could be a lot worse than it is, because there's been a few more games they could have lost too.
Yeah. But you don't remember those. You remember the ones that could have won.
Yeah.
And there's been legitimately like 4 that the bullpen blew, or they didn't take advantage of so many scoring opportunities. They could have easily won 4 others. But yeah, you forget about the couple they could have lost too. So that the other side saying, you stole that one, like the Phillies did with one of those games. So yeah. But bottom line, the entire division is separated by a game and a half as of this recording Thursday night. Game and a half from top to bottom.
Well, I think it's going to be like that all year too. One, because they're all going to beat up on each other, but 2, because it's just, there's so much good pitching in the division. I think everybody's going to be putting up a fight, and I don't really see a team in this division that anybody's just going to beat up on or cruise through. Even I joke about the Marlins a lot, but I've been watching their pitchers, man. They got some good starters. So I think every team's coming in to fight.
The Mets have they have the only winning record in the division. They're 7-6.
Yeah.
So
yeah, they're in first place with however many less games played.
Yeah. They're a half game ahead of the Phillies, who are 9-9. Then the Marlins are 8-9. The Braves are 8-10. Nationals 7-9. Everybody's like basically has the same record,
Yeah.
So now it's going to get interesting. And the Braves, there was some good and bad on the injury front. They have Drew Smiley. He's going to come off Saturday, so he is only missing 1 start. And, I think we both were kind of concerned. We've both been around the game long enough to know, and you were a pitcher, obviously, that when you hear forearm, you hear, oh, shit, because it can be a lot more serious than that. That can be the symptoms of something a lot more serious. But he's going to be back.
He's a big breaking ball guy, too. So, early in the season, you start spinning those off. Full intensity first few games. It's easy to have just little muscle flare-ups and stuff going on in there. But yeah, anytime now, I think just because they're so eager to do Tommy Johns on guys and operate and get it fixed, you feel like a guy gets an MRI, it's almost always going to show a tear. So anytime a forearm pops up, it kind of scares you. But I'm glad to see him coming back this quick.
So he's starting Saturday against the D-Backs in the middle game of that series. On the other hand, there's no timetable yet for Soroka. He had a 2-week shutdown, as you know, from the shoulder, and this is we're right at 2 weeks now. So I think the only concern would be if he doesn't start throwing, because it was a 2-week shutdown. Snit thought he'd be starting soon on the road. Snit hadn't heard yet if he was going to start like on the off day or this weekend or whatever. So we'll find out tomorrow where that's at. But, like Snit said, he wasn't being cold. He's just being realistic. He said that, he's so far away that it's not relevant right now. He just meant he's so far from being in the rotation. There's no sense updating him every day when we asked about him. He didn't mean, he's not going to be here all year. He just meant that, there's really no reason to think about it until one, he starts throwing again. Then he starts throwing, long distance and then gets back on the mound. He's got to go through all the steps again. So, I realistically, if everything goes well from here and no more setbacks, they haven't given a timetable, but I can't see him getting here before late May, early June.
Yeah, I was going to say June 1 because,
Yeah.
The longer you go without throwing, when it's a knee or an ankle or some, stiff back or something like that, it's one thing. But when you're not throwing at all, because even if your knee's bothering you, you got a minor injury, you're still throwing and keeping it in shape. The more time he goes without throwing, the longer it's going to be before he comes back. So, like I've said before, I think it's kind of a good thing because rushing that Achilles, even though they said he's 100%, he feels good. It makes me uncomfortable because it's such a serious injury. But, at this point, he's going to have to get back to at least a week of throwing and long tossing before he jumps off the mound again. And it is good news. He was built up as far as he was, but it's still not throwing for a while sets you back a little bit.
And, more importantly, right now for the team right now is Chris Martin. And he started playing catch early this week. He didn't throw it all for like a week and a half. He started playing catch early this week. I'm not sure. He wasn't off the mound yet as far as late as yesterday when we asked Snit. Off day, I don't know if he is that or yet off the mound yet or not, but I would look for him possibly towards the back end of this homestand, but that's not a given. They didn't say anything about when he might be back or anything. So, that's a big concern because I wrote today about how the Braves kind of gambled when they didn't bring back any of those guys, Melanson and Day and Shane Green. They kind of gambled that the starting rotation was going to go a lot deeper in games and you weren't going to have any problems with the guys you did bring back in the bullpen. And so far, neither of those things have happened. The starters have not gone deep for the most part. And now Chris Martin's out and Nuke's on the IL for COVID. They didn't announce that because he didn't give permission, but I had it confirmed. It is the COVID, either, possible exposure to it or a positive test. I don't know which, but so there's no update. Like Nuke could be back tomorrow, or not for weeks.
A month. How long was Will Smith out last year?
Exactly. We just don't know because they can't even give us updates because he didn't give permission, I guess, to talk about it. So they're missing both those guys because obviously Chris Martin might be their best reliever overall. And Nuke had moved his way up into that, maybe make it a fifth guy. They had the core four, if you will. Nuke was kind of moving into that category with the high leverage
push.
Yeah, with all the strikeouts he was getting.
Yeah.
As a guy that could potentially be used in some of these situations that they've had to lean so heavily on Mentor in. So missing both, maybe two of your top 5 or 6 guys is not good when your bullpen is not as deep as it was last year.
Well, and that's kind of the luxury they had last year is if anybody seemed to start stumbling, they had another 2-3 guys they could throw into the 8th inning, 9th inning, pick up roles. If you would have had somebody get hurt, you had 2 guys in line behind them that could close or fill their role. So, I mean, I definitely agree with you. The depth hasn't been the same. If these guys were pitching like they did at the end of the year last year, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But there's definitely been a few games that you feel like they should have won and the bullpen stumbled a little bit. And that kind of just seems to be the story with this team so far is they haven't had really a stretch where everybody's clicking at the same time.
Where they put it all together, all the components.
Yeah.
And then, they made a note of the last several years reliever injuries, as you're familiar with. They had a kind of a string of those, and the Braves at a certain point made Snit and was Roger McDowell here? It's his first year.
Snit's first year. Roger was here.
Yeah. they made a point of we're going to make sure these guys get rest. We're going to do everything we can to avoid reliever injuries and all that. And they've been really good about not having guys among the league leaders in appearances or innings, that kind of thing. They've made sure guys have gotten rest. Rarely have they gone even 3 days straight with guys, never 4 days straight. And, but this year I've noticed a little bit of a difference in that Mentor. He's got 10 appearances in the first 18 games. He's only one off the major league lead. And Will Smith's got 9 appearances, the guy that didn't pitch the whole season last year, kind of started late with the COVID. So they're having to lean on these guys, and they don't have a choice, really. You can't,
you don't have a choice.
You don't have a choice when you've got only, 3 or 4 guys that you really trust in high leverage situations. You got to use them.
You got to win games. I mean, you're hoping that the offense starts blowing a few teams out, right? And you can use your B squad and kind of give those guys some days off. But that was what was so tough when I was in Atlanta was, a couple of those seasons, every single game felt like a 1-run game. So, people wanted to ride Freddie hard or Bobby, for using guys, but they're also going to get crushed if they bring in a dude that shouldn't be in there and he blows the game. And you got, your 2 best relievers down there and you're giving them a day off because they've thrown a little bit. I mean, that's probably the hardest job as a manager is not just who to put in, but how often to use them.
And those have been the last couple of years too, that the same thing. All the games seem like 1 or 2 run games. Yeah.
And with the offense always coming back last year, I mean, they're not
doing it this year.
They haven't had that magic this year, but
not at all.
Last year you had to treat a 2-run lead as a tie game because you knew they were going to score late, and they'll get back to that. So, I mean, they're going to need Luke Jackson's look pretty good to me. They're going to need guys to start really giving them confidence that they don't have to ride those 2 guys at the end of the game so hard.
Yeah, like last night they bring in Mentor with the bases loaded after Ian Anderson, we'll get to him in a minute, pitched his ass off and left with two outs in the 7th inning. They bring in Mentor with bases loaded. That's pretty impressive. He gets out of that, and then he gets out, and then he bring him back for the 8th inning rather than use another guy. So they were able to rest some guys, but what Anderson did really saved the pen last night, and then Mentor going an inning and a 3rd. Then you could just hand it over to Will Smith.
And he had a day off today, so you could do that with Mentor without, worrying about today's game.
But Mentor was really something last night. He's had a couple of rough outings lately, but that was a great appearance last night. Nate Jones has not been what they thought in spring training. He was terrific, but hey, we know you can't put too much stock in spring training. And he won the job in spring training, but he just hasn't been the same guy. I know his ERA is still in the low 2s, but he's given us some inherited runs and, put a lot of guys on base. And it just hasn't been the same pitcher that.
It's always a clean inning in spring training.
Right. And Jacob Webb, there has been no clean innings this time. And Jacob Webb is not the same guy yet from that he was pre-surgery. So that's 2 guys, especially Jacob Webb, that they had hoped, they could put in high leverage situations. So, there's still a work in progress, the bullpen. They got a 1.46 bullpen whip, walks plus hits per inning pitched. And it's the 5th highest in the majors. It's better than only the Rangers, Mets, Rockies, and Tigers. So walks are a big part of that problem. The bullpen walk rate is 5.32 per 9 innings. That's 4th highest in the majors. And as one of my readers noted to me, their fly ball rate is the highest in the majors. And that's not a good combo. A lot of walks and a lot of high fly balls.
Not in today's game, right? With the ball flying the way it does.
Small ballparks like Yankee Stadium.
In general, you want your relievers coming in attacking. And it does matter, and sometimes it's a good situation for a guy like Minter to come in last night with the bases loaded. He can't afford to walk somebody, so he's got to come after him, and that gets you locked in for the next inning. But I mean, for me, for whatever reason, a single versus a walk, it's like, it feels like twice as often the walk scores over the single.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what the stat is, but you start giving away free passes and it just comes back to bite you. And, I like pitching to contact. If you're going to lose, go down throwing strikes, make them hit it. All these guys throw 95 plus. You just have to have in your head how hard it is to hit a 95, 96 mile an hour fastball and be willing to go down in flames.
Yeah, Mentor came in, went after LeMahieu. I mean, it was an impressive outing, and they're also in the bottom half of the majors in opponents' batting average. The bullpen is 232 average allowed. So, fortunately, some of the hits and the walks have been offset by the damage
Strikeouts
limiter,
and-
strikeouts.
Yeah. I mean, that's the game. That's all around the league, you know?
Yeah. Walks up, strikeouts up. But Atlanta relievers have the 6th best strikeout rate in the majors at 10.6 per 9. So that has worked. They were counting on having a lot of strikeouts in the bullpen, and they're getting those from Will Smith, from Minter, Matzik. Those guys can all strike out a lot of guys. So if they hadn't, then it would be a lot uglier with all the traffic they've had on the bases. But walks are killing a lot of these guys, or at least raising the blood pressure if they don't lead directly to runs. Nate Jones and Luke Jackson each has 6 walks and 6 strikeouts. Luke's always kind of walking that tightrope though, with that slider that he bounces.
He's a guy that for me needs his own inning. Like if you give Luke his own inning, he'll put 2 guys on, he'll strike a couple guys out and get a pop up. But sometimes you bring him into a jam, he doesn't have that luxury of, messing around for the first hitter or 2. That's something that I could see him improving on. But yeah, I mean, you get brought into those big situations, and it's easy to mess it up if you're not lights out right away.
And of their big 3, none of them are just avoiding walks. Will Smith has 6 walks in 8 innings. Minter has 6 walks in 9 1/3, and Matzik has 5 walks in 7 1/3. None of those are good numbers for walks.
No, and the only good side of it is they all have the ability to strike guys out.
Right.
So it's not. I mean, it's not fun to watch. It's high stress.
Yeah.
Especially if you come in and walk 2 guys right off the bat. And it makes it hard for the manager because you don't know if you're going to walk the next guy or not. But yeah.
Or you come in with the bases loaded and you walk a guy. Oh, that's hard to watch.
Yeah.
Offensive woes. Talk about both 2 sides of a coin here. We got fully half of the teams in baseball, 15 teams, are hitting below 230 this year. I mean, that's brutal. The Braves are 18th in baseball with a 228 average before Thursday. Far more important, I think we all agree, most of us agree, is at least than batting average or OBP and OPS. I mean, but average still, you want a good average. But if you're getting on base, you're driving it, you're slugging, that's more important than average to me. But the Braves are doing better, significantly better in those latter 2 categories. Not great, but a lot better. They're tied for 9th with a 323 team OBP. And they're 5th, believe it or not, with a 739 OPS. So, and that's due largely to being tied for 2nd in the majors in home runs. So they're still hitting the home runs. 26 of them, 7 of those by Acuna, who still leads the majors individually. At least he does going into Thursday night games. He's just ahead of 10 others who have 6 apiece, and a dozen with 5, including Freddie Freeman. So Freddie, meanwhile, he's having an odd season for Freddie. I'm sure it'll all even out like it always does with him, but he's only hitting 222. Yet he's got twice as many walks as strikeouts. He's got 16 walks, 8 strikeouts. So his OBP is like normal, 388. And he's got 5 homers and 2 doubles. So he's slugging 492. Again, pretty normal for him. So he's got an 880 OPS, which is perfectly fine. I mean, you want to see him around 900, he's perfectly fine. But considering he's hitting 222, you just wouldn't think that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just going to come down to Ozuna getting going.
Did we lose Eric?
Once Ozuna starts.
Okay, I'll carry on until Eric rejoins us.
I'm still here.
But.
Oh, am I gone?
Here's your daily David dropout from the
David
YouTube stream. This is a good time to tell you guys, you can sign up to The Athletic for just $3.99 a month by visiting theathletic.com/755 is real. David, though he's not present, will tell you about his great article that he just wrote about Ian Anderson's gym, and we'll get to that in just a moment once David comes back on. Maybe he needs to go to the AT&T web portal and pay a bill.
Yeah, it's every time, huh?
Yeah, well, you guys can help us pay that bill by visiting theathletic.com/755 is real.
There he is.
Muted, David.
You're muted.
I thought we lost you, Eric. So I was going on, we lost Eric.
No.
because you were frozen and I wasn't frozen on my screen.
It's all right.
Why come this only happens when I'm doing Zoom? Anyway, I got to check. I keep saying I got to check AT&T and I have to do it. But so what were we on, Freddie?
Yeah, and I was just saying, like for once Ozuna gets going,
Yeah.
Freddie's gonna get a lot more to hit. But
Yeah,
if I
16
come in,
walks, 8 strikeouts for Freddie. So he's got an 880 OPS, which is
yeah,
normal.
he's just not
for
getting
him.
anything to hit. And,
Yeah.
and that's the thing is before it's harder because the Braves have two guys you're not going to let beat you. You don't want Acuna to beat you, and you don't want Freddie to beat you.
Right.
But Acuna's out now, so your pitchers meeting before the series, you're going to say we're not letting Freddie beat us, and so you're just going to see if he wants to walk or not. He's not a burner on the base paths, so you're just going to say be around the zone to him. Don't make any mistakes. If you walk him, you walk him. And then you're putting it on Ozuna's court to do the damage. And since he hasn't gotten going, yeah, and that was the difference. That's why Freddie won MVP, because you had to pitch to him last year. You had to pick your poison. So with him not hitting the way he normally does, I mean, if I come in and face Freddie, or if I'm in a jam and I'm a righty, I'm just going to spin him breaking balls down below the zone, try to jam him inside. If he takes his walk, he takes his walk, and then you're setting up a double play for Ozuna. If he's cold. If he's hot, you don't want to put somebody else on base for him. So I think because Freddie's putting up his numbers as far as OPS goes, once Ozuna gets hot, then they'll have to start pitching to him. But they're not going to until he does.
And early on, Freddie did hit a lot of balls right at people too. So
because I didn't know Ozuna was cold yet.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like,
into the shift and everywhere. I mean, he was hitting line drives at everybody. So if you look at his BABIP and those expected runs, everything's high. Much higher than it would suggest he's been one of the most unlucky hitters in the league if you look at those numbers. So
if he's hitting 222, there's some bad luck too.
Line drive rate and all that.
He squares the ball out more than anybody.
But despite all this lurching, kind of erratic offense we've seen, and I know it's tough some nights inning after inning where they're leaving runners on base and all this, they still are ninth in the majors in runs scored, and they're tied for second in homers with 26 in 18 games. So a lot of that's Acuna carrying the offense, obviously, but still they're getting some hits. They're just not getting guys going at once. Like last year, there were times where they had 6 guys going at once last year, 6, 7 guys.
Or in the same inning. It was even if they got to the 5th and they hadn't scored yet, they'd have that one inning where everybody piled on, they put up a crooked number. It's just been sporadic this year.
It hasn't seemed like there's been more than 2 guys going for a stretch of 3 games this year.
Yeah.
Acuna stayed hot, and then somebody else gets hot for a game or 2, but nobody else has gotten really hot at all. Any sustained length, nobody.
No.
So the bench guys are the guys that have been hot, in their limited opportunities. Adrianza, he started some games here and he's been hot.
Yeah.
So you want to guess who the worst scoring teams in the NL are? Mets and the Phillies. Now they haven't played as many games, but still per game, lowest.
I wouldn't have guessed that.
Nope.
Maybe the Mets, because they haven't been raking, but Phillies seem like they've been winning a lot of games with the offense.
Or Mets and the Nationals, rather. Phillies are 4th lowest, though.
Okay.
Phillies are 4th fewest.
Nationals, I know, haven't been hitting. I've been watching Soto. He hasn't been putting up his normal ABs either.
Yeah. He hasn't. He has not. He has not done a lot. And didn't he just go on the DL? I think he's on the IL.
Not certain. Could check.
Check that real quick. I think Soto might have just gone on the 10-day. While I wait for you.
Yep.
So Acuna's going to run away with the MVP, man, with Tatis missing time and questionable for the shoulder the rest of the way.
He doesn't look the same.
Betts had a little nagging thing. He was out a couple of games. I don't know if he went on the IL or not.
I just saw Betts make that catch to end the game against the Padres. He's a player, man.
Oh, he's terrific. Betts and Acuna, best all-around players in the league.
Yeah.
Let's see. Betts IL.
Trout doesn't get brought up because he's a given.
So you got to have Atlanta has 86 runs in 18 games. A year ago, the Braves were 2nd in the majors in runs and homers behind the Dodgers in both. And they were only 1 run behind the Dodgers for 60 games. So you expect them to be there. I mean, you don't just remove the DH and take Adam Duvall out of the lineup, and all of a sudden you're not a prolific scoring team. So they would be right back. And here's the thing: they would be right back near at the top or near the top if they had taken advantage of scoring opportunities this year the way they did last year. And by that, a lot of that is what I'm talking about, is hitting with runners in scoring position. This one, of all the stats so far, the things will get turned around or whatever, this one's the one that I'm just going, wow. I mean, because, we're almost 20 games in now. They went 0 for 8 last night with runners in scoring position, still won the game 4-1. Because they had a sac fly, they had a home run, they had Ozuna grounded out with the bases loaded. Andy had, let's see, there was 2 sac flies. Adrian's had a sac fly. Anyway, they didn't have a single hit with the runner in scoring position. So they are now hitting 205 with runners in scoring position. 205, dude. That's sixth lowest in the majors. 686 OPS in those situations, which is 19th in the majors.
I mean, I put money on that not keeping up.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things that happens throughout the season. And again, it's so early that this is your only sample to look at. But
yeah,
there'll be stints where they're hitting 400 with runners in scoring position for a week or two, as well.
And the thing is, it's the bench guys that are doing the most damage. Acuna's the only guy that's even doing anything. And he doesn't get many risk opportunities, hitting leadoff and with a pitcher at ninth. But again, like you said, it'd be a lot more alarming if it was 2 or 3 weeks into 2 or 3 months into the season instead of
that's happening. Yeah,
3 weeks. But a year ago, Braves were 9th in the MLB, 270 average runner scoring position, had the 4th best OPS in those situations, 283. So just by comparison, I mean, that's a lot of runs right there. So, but get this, among qualified big league hitters, that's guys with at least 3.1 plate appearances per team game. Only Brave in the top 75 in hitting with runners in scoring position. Acuna, who's tied for 48th with a 333 average. He's 3 for 9. Doesn't get many chances because
he's hitting after the pitcher.
Yeah. So he's got like 1/2 to 1/3 the chances of most guys in the lineup. The only other Brave hitting as high as 275 with runners in scoring position are 3 bench guys and Max Fried, who's 1 for 1 in those chances. Pablo Sandoval, Ara Adrianza, and Guillermo Heredia. He of the 2 homers, 6 RBIs Sunday against the Cubs. Heredia, best game of his career. They're the only players besides Acuna hitting as high as 275 with runners in scoring position. And they've only had limited chances, obviously. Sandoval's 2 for 4. Both of those hits were 2-run pinch hit homers. Adrianza is 2 for 4 with a double and a pinch hit homer. Heredia is 2 for 5 with a grand slam Sunday.
What's Freddie hitting?
Let me get down to him. So those guys are combined 6 for 13 with 4 homers with runners in scoring position, right? Take those 3 backups out. The rest of the Braves, 21 for 119 with 2 homers with runners in scoring position. That's a 176 average. And would be easily worse than the majors, but you obviously don't take out the best guys. Still, that tells me they're due to, for like you said, go to hit 400 for about a month in those situations.
And they're a game and a half back. When you have stats like that really stand out and you're still a game and a half back, I take that as a good sign.
So among qualified Braves, guys with 3.1 plate appearances, second on the team with RISP average is Marcell Ozuna. He's 75th in majors at 273. He's 6 for 22 in those spots, but he has 8 strikeouts. 8 strikeouts, 3 walks. Travis d'Arnaud is hitting 190. You expect a lot more from him. Last year, he was great in those situations. He's 4 for 21 with 8 strikeouts and no walks. Freddie and Dansby each are hitting 188 with runners in scoring position. They're 3 for 16, each of them. But Freddie's got 6 walks and a 409 OBP in those situations. Dansby doesn't have walks. Dansby has 1 walk, 5 strikeouts, and a 578 OPS with runners in scoring position. Dansby's off to a pretty bad start.
Always like that, though. He's always streaky.
But he usually starts fast. But he is streaky. But he usually starts fast and cools off. So
yeah, I feel like he puts together streaks. Kind of like Justin Upton used to do, where he'd be ice cold and then he'd just rake for a month straight. You know, I mean,
I don't
that's
put
the hard
anybody
thing
in this
about.
category.
Yeah, yeah, I know, but it's I feel like Dansby, he makes some adjustment and then just takes off for a solid month.
Dansby gets neither as cold nor as hot as Upton.
Yeah, yeah,
I've
Up's
always
extreme.
I've always said Justin Upton is the streakiest good player I've ever covered.
Yeah,
I mean, of good players. It was absurd how bad he would look for 2 weeks and then be the
just be
best hitter in baseball for the
yeah.
next 2 weeks.
Yeah, and that's baseball though. When you got 162, it all levels out.
That swing of his is so unique to Justin Upton's.
It's the most explosive, man. The first time I saw him hitting the cage, I thought he was a god. This dude has so much just electricity in his swing.
Were you still around when he hit the one into the players' parking lot at Disney, Wild World of Sports?
Opposite field? Oh, over everything.
Over the trees, over those metal banners, over the trees, into the players' parking lot.
Man.
Yeah, he had some pop. A couple more guys. Austin Riley, 0 for 5 runners in scoring position. He didn't get many chances. That homer last night, by the way, it might have been a cheapie. It was. Statcast said it wouldn't have gone out in any other ballpark, but still, that's what he needed. I think that could help him a lot.
It's the thing is it doesn't really matter. I mean, it went out, so he's got a homer. So he goes into the next series riding off a homer, whether it's 245 in Fenway, whatever it is. I mean, you need those good things. It's better than him hitting a ball 405, 110 miles an hour in the gap, and the dude lays out and catches it. I mean, you gotta feel good about that as a player, and you're gonna have plenty of times where you do get screwed over and have those 4 good at bats and nothing to show for it. So if you get a cheap homer, you take it.
I thought the most impressive thing that Austin Riley did last night, though, was getting smashed in the face by that bounced ball directly in the chin, and it bounced off his face like it hit a concrete wall.
Yeah.
He didn't even move. He didn't flinch. He didn't have so much as a seam mark on his chin. No blood, no nothing. And that ball hit him, boom, boom, and caromed off like it hit a brick wall. That dude's got an iron chin, man.
Yeah, he does.
I mean, that hurt just watching that. Because it bounced, but it still had to have good velo because he threw that ball hard.
I love guys like that, though. I hate when a guy rolls around the ground after something minor.
There are some guys that would have too.
That would have been out of the game, or even if it's just like a 4-minute delay of checking on them and they're okay. I love the guys that just wear it and keep going.
They're those guys that want everybody watching it at home to be going, oh God, is he all right? Oh no, oh this, and then he gets up. Oh yeah, Riley just stood up like, yeah, whatever, let's go. Trainer came out. Riley's like, no.
I didn't even feel it. I love it.
I mean, he didn't even have a mark, man. Ozzie Albies 1 for 13 with runners in scoring position, though at least he has no strikeouts, 3 walks. He's putting the ball in play. Puny 376 OPS in his opportunities. Both him and Riley in the bottom 25 as far as OPS runners scoring position. Okay, so there's the risk numbers, and like we said, 2 weeks from now that might be all irrelevant because they'll just go on a scorching tear.
Nobody even care in 2 weeks. Be on to the next thing.
Speaking of Adrianza, this guy could do some things, man. Some things the Braves haven't really done much of in recent years, like lay down a bunt and get a sac fly. So I just stumbled on this stat today, which is pretty amazing. The Braves lead the majors with 8 sacrifice flies in 18 games this year. They were dead last in the majors in sac flies last year with 7 in 60 games. That's quite a new wrinkle.
Yeah.
And he leads the majors with 3 sacrifice flies himself. Adrianza does.
I keep wondering, if the pendulum's going to swing back the other way and teams are going to start, trying to fill out rosters of guys that battle like that and can put the ball in play.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how many times do you see your situation is 2nd, 3rd, 1 out or something, and teams get out of it now?
Yeah.
They get a punch out, or dude tries to come up and be aggressive and pops up. I mean, it just seems to me like there's a need there of guys like Martin Prado that just come up and battle.
The game is so changed in that regard because used to that was a given they were going to score there. The other team usually gives you a run there.
Yep.
And they don't do it so much anymore because they know so many guys will strike out.
Or they'll try to give you a run. They'll play infield back and give
Yeah.
you a punch out. I mean,
Yeah.
look, it's a lot harder to put the ball in play now than it was 10 years ago.
Right.
And that's part of why you see those walks out of the bullpen, because teams are realizing that you can get out of those situations mainly with a strikeout. That's really the only way out of second and third, one out, something like that, is you get lucky with a pop-up that's not deep enough or you punch somebody out. And teams are just throwing guys in there that'll walk a guy, punch a guy out, and get a pop-up. But I just keep thinking if teams started filling out rosters with one or two of those guys on there that they can pinch hit with or bring up in those situations that you're getting the ball put in play, it could be a benefit.
Well, the Braves have got two of them this year, and they haven't had them like that since Prado and Hinsky and those kind of guys, but Prado especially. But with Adrianza and Pablo Sandoval, they got two of them.
They're coming up. They're not punching out.
No, Adrianza, man, he has really impressed me. And I had heard good things about him from some people that covered him with Twins. And he has been everything they said and more. And a great dude, too. Everybody loves the guy, like Sandoval, obviously. But yeah, when you get a guy up there that can hit a sac fly, I mean, there's just so few guys that seem to be able to do that. You get up there, you got guys at second and third with none or one out. And I mean, there's been a lot of times in recent years when the Braves have not scored a run in those situations. You're like, all you need is a sac fly. Well, Adrianza will do it. He'll just.
Yeah. But that's what makes Freddie so great too. Almost every time Freddie comes up in those situations, you can just book at least one guy scoring because he's not going to punch out. And then, obviously if you make a mistake, he can take you deep, but that's what makes him so great is he's willing to have that type of a bat and battle and slap the ball and do what he has to do. Some guys aren't.
When you first came up, didn't it seem like the best guys, the best all-around players could do those kind of things though? They were going to get that guy in or get the guy over. They weren't just going to swing for the downs.
No, it's a lot of younger players you see now. They come up and they want to be the hero.
Yeah.
But you'd face a guy like, Joey Votto or somebody like that. And Joey would choke up like 5 inches on the bat.
Yeah.
You'd see it in the box and you'd know you were in for a battle because he wasn't trying to hit a homer.
Yeah.
There's nowhere to go because he's a guy that talented just trying to make contact. But I don't know. I mean, it's kind of the way the game is now is you don't get rewarded for being, you might not even have a roster spot if you're a guy that hits 275 with 7 homers.
Yeah.
The guy that hits 245 with 20 is going to have that roster spot and get paid. I think that the pay system kind of dictates that too. You see it with the shift, guys, they want to put up numbers. They say, I don't get, I'm not going to bunt. I'm not going to slap the single because you don't put up numbers trying to do that. And, the business side of the game, I think affects that in a sense.
You don't get paid for getting them over and getting them in.
You don't even get a job. I'm pretty sure if you're doing that in AAA, you don't even get called up.
Yeah. That sucks, man.
Yeah.
Somebody hit a home run the other day, had 2 strikes, choked up. It was either Votto or Sandoval. It might've been Pablo. That might've been a home run he hit, was choked up. And it was about this much on the bat, 2 inches, inch and a half, 2 inches on the bat, pulled a home run, choked up like that. So
the ball flies, with these balls, you don't have to swing hard.
So Adrianza and that's the other thing about this road trip that you can't just dismiss is they want a road trip with Acuna out of the lineup for the last 2 games, with Ozzie Albies out of the lineup for 2 games, with a couple of pitchers out, a couple of relievers out and starters. I mean, they did some good work, man, considering Adrianza and Heredia were both in the lineup for both games in New York. Heredia in place of the injured center fielders, both of them, Christian Pache and Ender Inciarte. And Adrianza was in right field for Acuna, missed the 2 Yankee games. And Adrianza also started the last 2 weekend games in Chicago at second base in place of Albies, who had the bruised calf after getting hit by pitch. So Adrianza, I mean, literally, you can move him all over the diamond, and he's not going to hurt you. I mean, he can play solid D. So Snit said it's great. He comes in and fills in right field, fills in at second base. Said he's done a wonderful job all year. He got some big hits. He's a very athletic guy, and you need that guy generally especially in our situation, that can play all over the field, and he's that guy. And that's the Prado, that was so good in that role.
Yeah, and it's not easy to do.
And then Fonte.
Charlie did a good job of that the last few years too, just filling in.
Yeah, Culberson had that one year, really good year.
Having good at bats in those situations, I mean, without Adrianza, you might be in trouble this year, but he's filled it really well.
And Sandoval.
Yeah.
Those two big pinch hit, 2-run homers.
Well, yeah, we're singing a different tune without those two off the bench.
Yeah. So getting back to how it's kind of backfired, I think, in my opinion, and I know it can change, but so far it's backfired. The Braves making that decision, whether it's because of the budget, they were unwilling to pay those guys to bring back at least one or two of them, those three, but it's backfired so far because you've had the pitching, the relievers who've been hurt and or just haven't pitched as well as you expected, and the starters who've not been going as deep as you expected. So that's why Ian Anderson's start Wednesday night was especially it was perfect. It was like a salve for right now for what the Braves needed. But that's what they expected from him, Fried, not Charlie to a lesser degree at his age at 37, but Ian going 6 2/3. He was the first Braves starter this year to pitch into the 7th inning, man.
That's hard to believe.
I know.
That would have been an easy bet to take early on, but
I would have thought Fried would be doing it almost on a regular basis, and Ian as well.
Ian, yeah. I mean, I thought his first few starts, I didn't think he looked like himself, but yesterday he looked like the guy we're used to seeing.
Exactly.
I mean, and that was really encouraging because he was throwing all three pitches, getting bad swings on the changeup, locating his fastball finally. Curveball looked pretty good. He was getting bad swings too.
Mm-hmm.
The swing he got from Hicks on his changeup, I mean, he threw all three pitches to Hicks, fastball, curveball, changeup, and it was just blew him away. But when you see him start getting those really bad swings, that means his stuff's overwhelming him to a point where they got to look for something.
Yeah.
Those first couple starts, I felt like the hitters were able to just battle and eliminate a pitch. But the way he looked yesterday, man, and the Yankees aren't. I mean, that's a tough lineup and it's a tough place to pitch. So that was pretty encouraging.
And I made note of on the last podcast how he told us, he wasn't worried because he's always a slow starter, and I thought I was just bullshitting. But then you look back, and he has been.
Yeah.
And a year ago, people forget he started out the season at the alternate site. He didn't win a job in the opening day rotation.
So he came in at his peak.
And he made several starts at the alternate site before he really got on a roll there. And it was only after he'd made 3 great starts, because he started, that they told Alex, you need to come watch this kid's next few starts. And Alex watched the last couple of them, and he was so good. They're like, he needs to go up now. Yeah. So he came up and he was on a roll at that point. So this year he starts out where he would have been last year when he was struggling at the alternate site,
Yeah.
And now he's starting to look like he did last year. So he wasn't BS, and he was really, and in the minor leagues, it's the same way. Almost every year he's been the same way in the minor leagues. So
the hard thing is, as a player, you want to get to the bottom of that.
Yeah.
Why do I always struggle, for the first month, or why do I do it this way? But sometimes, man, there's just no answer. It's just who you are. Your body takes longer than other guys to get going.
Yeah.
And you just have to battle through that period. But he did a good job of that too.
So it was the first Brave starter to go past the 6th inning. Not only that, it was just the 7th time in 18 games that a Brave starter lasted more than 5 innings, which is starting to look like last year, not quite that bad, but I mean, that's what was happening last year. So when the bullpen's got to cover 4 innings more than half the nights, and you've got 3 less guys and now 4 less guys that you could count on in those tight games than you did a year ago, when you could go 8 deep in the bullpen, really.
Well, and last year you could carry like 12 relievers, it seemed like, with however many roster spots.
With a 28-man roster. It's 26 this year, and they still got one more reliever than most teams, but if you got 10, you got like 4 or 5 that you really want in tight situations at all.
Yeah.
So it's meant obviously a heavier than expected load on a pin that's just not nearly as deep as last year. So we'll see. I mean, they can fix it. Some guys can get healthy. Newt can come back, pick up where he left off. If Chris Martin picks up where he was, and then Alex can make some moves. He can make a move or two like he did a couple of years ago. Last year he wanted to avoid having to do that at the trade deadline, so that's why he brought in all those relievers. This year he did not. He let some relievers go, and he might have to do the same thing he did last year and make some moves for the deadline.
I'm wondering how long Shane Green's going to sit on the couch.
I know.
I mean, at some point, you got to realize you're not getting the deal you thought you were going to get, and weigh how much it's costing you to sit on the couch. How much it's setting you back. Because
he's told teams that he's going to be ready. He's been throwing. bullpens, and he'll be able to jump back in. So we'll see. But I can't imagine he's been facing any good hitters. But
Yeah.
Each day, I think it's going to be an announcement from somebody, whether it's the Braves or another. Each day, I expect it, and that's why I'm surprised it's taking this long. I thought it would happen in like the first week of the season, to be honest.
Yeah.
But might be like Keuchel, when it happened in right around when was that? Right after
Right by the break, around the break.
Yeah.
That's tough though. That's you're kind of setting yourself back, and I know you got to fight and get the contract you think you're worth, but you got to start weighing how far you're setting yourself back in your next contract if you don't play this year, or if you don't get out there and you struggle.
If you just get a 1-year deal this year, which is surely what he's going to get now.
Yeah, and he could get guaranteed money, you'd think.
But he was obviously asking for probably multi-years, more years and more money than anybody was willing to. I mean, there's been some teams that are pretty desperate for bullpens right now, and nobody's signed him yet. So
yeah. Well, it's it's all those peripherals too that.
Yep.
You can have a good season as far as ERA and appearances and holds and all that stuff goes, and teams see these warning signs that they just are waiting for you to fall apart, so they don't want to go multiple years. They'll go 1 year and see if it plays out. But if he's shooting for 2 or 3 still, and they don't like the peripherals, he might not.
Right.
He's gonna have to settle for 1 year at this point.
Yeah, because he wasn't throwing 98, 99.
Exactly.
He didn't have like a big nasty pitch. I mean, he didn't have,
he just competes.
Yeah.
He just competes.
Kind of like a poor man's Melanson.
Yeah.
So yeah, his performance last night, Ian's, was probably the best by a Braves starter this year. I mean, it was, and they needed it. It was a great way to go into the off day, and because they need to get Max Fried back, and they need to get Soroka when they can. But they need Fried's back at what he was, something close to what he was last year, obviously, because he's probably the biggest disappointment so far, or the biggest surprise.
Biggest surprise for sure.
Yeah, I just did not expect what he's done so far. So
I think Charlie's been pretty much what you expected from him, especially at his age. He's
been good, man.
Well, yeah,
that's great. 2 nights ago, that was a great start. I mean, for him right now, it's exactly what you wanted.
Yeah,
that 6-inning start against the Yankees.
Yep.
And his stuff, man, for like 4 innings was just.
Yeah,
he was dominating them for 4 innings.
That's like 98% of the time. He's looked great. He's just had a few bad innings mixed into his early starts, but he didn't have that bad inning against the Yankees. And, he looks like what I expected him to look like.
How about his stuff still at 37, man?
Stupid.
I mean, the sinker, the slider, and that slider, a lot of times you would think it's a slider, but it's a curve. But he was explaining to me how, because of his arm angle, he can't throw that
over the top
12-6 curveball because he comes, 3/4, and so it acts like a slider, but it's harder obviously than the curve. So, but like even the broadcasters are calling it slider sometimes, but he's got that slider and the curve working, and then he's got the sinker working the other way, and then he goes up in his zone and he could still 97, man.
Yeah,
in on guys' hands and locate it.
Some guys' bodies, man, they're just built for it. They just hold up to the test of time, and they can keep going, but.
Big rangy guy,
big flex, like limber, he's flexible. He's got good range of motion, and I don't think he stresses his body too hard off the field. I think a lot of times the guys that you see throwing 98, but they're doing it by lifting heavy and beating up on their joints. I think Charlie just stretches, he just stays flexible, and he's kind of throwing what he was born with.
And he's living obviously a great lifestyle off the field as far as staying healthy. He's got the kids and all that. He just goes home but you got to remember, he didn't have when he had about 5 or 6 years when a typical pitcher is throwing 180 to 220 innings back in that. That he didn't throw many at all because he was hurt. He had the nagging injury. He had a hamstring injury in Philly that ripped off the bone. The other innings he was trying to the other years he was trying to figure it out. So he never really had those big innings. So he has a relatively fresh arm.
And he's also just always had this stuff.
Yeah.
He had this stuff. When he was struggling, it was just nobody knew why.
Yeah.
And then he finally learned how to pitch, and I think he matured a little bit, but this is the stuff he's always had. I mean, you always got to wonder with guys getting older when it's going to kind of fall off, and that's probably what teams are worried about with Shane Green. But Charlie's had this stuff since the first time I saw him throw. He was throwing 96.
Snit said about Ian last night, said that's the best he's been all year, spring training and everything. Just as far as the 3-pitch mix, the command of his fastball, the total package was the best it's been this year. And he complimented him again about like he's a rare young guy that when one of his pitches isn't working, he's able to compensate. And he's able to slow the game down, never panics, in these big situations, facing the Yankees in his debut and Garrett Cole when he outpitched Garrett Cole. Facing the Yankees at Yankee Stadium, a guy who grew up in upstate New York. So that's reverential, the Yankee Stadium. Yeah. And he goes in there and just did like it's nothing. And this isn't a great Yankees team, obviously. Some big bats, as you noted.
Yeah, and even if they're throwing out a mediocre offense, when guys can poke a ball out to right field like Riley did yesterday, that's extra pressure as a pitcher. So that's something you got to see him handle. But you can't throw a bad lineup in that park out. I mean, it's like Cincinnati.
Yeah.
You feel like they're always going to score runs.
He had a 4.70 ERA in his first 3 starts, but how early we are, obviously. He has that great start last night, lowers it to 3.27. All of a sudden, It's like, okay, that's fine. So he has one more and it'll be below 3.
Yep.
One more good start. So Fried and Smiley, both on the 10-day IL. 2 of your 5. I mean, again, second year in a row with the rash of pitching injuries, but Smiley will be back Saturday. Against the Yankees now, by the way, Ian Anderson. So he's faced him twice. He's 2-0 with an 0.71 ERA. He's given up 1 run and 5 hits. 1 run was on a solo homer.
Too bad they're not in his division, because there's always a team that for whatever reason you see that uni.
Yeah.
And you just feel comfortable and locked in. You want that team to be in your division, so you face them a lot more.
Yeah. He left 14 tickets last night.
Did he?
It was almost all family, but they also had his high school coach, his high school pitching coach, and his grandma, who saw him pitch for the first time since high school.
Damn.
He said his dad set her up with the with MLB Network on her iPad last year, gave her the login and all that. So she's not like a big sports fan. She's just an Ian fan, but she started watching the Braves, like even when he doesn't pitch now. So she watches all the games, but he said she was at the game and she was just like, she was cold, but she was thrilled watching him last night. That's pretty cool. Beverly. Cool. So it's not that long a drive from where they are up upstate New York over there. He, let's see, he's got in those 2 games, 12 2/3 innings against the Yankees, 10 strikeouts, 1 run, 5 hits, 6 walks. And by the way, he turns 23 next month. We keep forgetting Ian Anderson is only 22. It's easy to forget that. Yeah.
Because of the maturity, I mean, the way they handle stuff, and even him being able to come straight out to the media and just say, I always start slow.
Yeah.
The confidence you have to be able to say that, because if you keep struggling, you look like you're full of crap.
And with the full beard this year, he really doesn't show his age
a little older.
Yeah.
A little tougher.
Yeah. It's funny. His buddy Herter plays for the Hawks. So the 2 of them are the Hawks are playing great right now. So high school buddies. That's pretty cool.
Right there. Yeah.
That's pretty cool to have a good friend, and the 2 of you are like starring in the same town in the South and like the major sports. I mean, that's like, come on.
That's kind of like Fried and Giolito and Flair, those guys that all went to the same high school. I mean, that doesn't happen much.
Snip said about Ian, he said he's got a way of slowing the game down. He's got some great traits for a young pitcher, just how he keeps pitching. Said he always finds a way to keep the game manageable and give you a chance to win. And he's a young kid that's going to go through, he's talking about the ups and downs and he's having like a bad outing. He said he's a young kid that's going to go through that. He's not going to be locked in all the time. Nobody is. But tonight he had it going on, everything. So Sid loves this kid.
Well, that's a big difference, though, between him and other young starters you see is when Kyle he's Wright. Off, it's, when they're off, it's a 4 spot.
When Kyle Wright has a bad inning, it just falls apart.
It blows up on him and you take him out of the game. Ian, it might be a sloppy inning and he gives up 1, because he keeps battling and staying composed. But that's another reason why you watch him pitch, and it's hard to believe he's 23 and able to do that, because that's the biggest challenge of the game, especially for starters.
Yeah. Let's see. We got this weekend's. Oh, Nuke, by the way, he had a 1.69 ERA, 14 strikeouts, 5 walks in his first 7 2/3 innings. So
His strikeouts are crazy.
I mean, that's no small matter missing him. I know he wasn't, closing or setting up, but he was getting there, and
He was working his way into that. Yeah.
So for his sake, I hope he gets through these damn protocols and gets back in there. I hope this isn't an extended thing, man. Braves have been pretty lucky with guys following that stuff rigorously and the regimen of the protocols and not losing guys. Not nearly as many as most teams. Most teams are going through this where they have 3 or 4 guys test positive, and the Braves haven't gone through that. I think the best thing that could have happened to them was having those guys do it at the very start of summer camp last year, and when Freddie got so sick, I think it sent a signal to the Braves. This stuff's serious, man. We got to take this stuff seriously. And as a result, a lot of this is the best team is the one that's healthy, that can play.
Yeah, I was surprised. They've been canceling a lot of games.
Yeah.
They're
not messing with it.
Instead of making teams play without guys, they're just shutting the whole game down.
Yeah, there's a limit they'll do, but it's kind of a case by case. It's not a hard limit. It's not like you lose 3 guys and you're out. They're just kind of looking at case by case. They're doing that with the tracing. They can tell who's been close to them. They don't want to risk at all if there's a guy that might have been close enough to, borderline. They don't want to risk him giving it to somebody on another team and it's spreading. They'd rather just cancel a game rather than it spread through several teams. So, one other stat. Bullpen got its 7th loss Tuesday. I know wins and losses aren't that important, obviously, but bullpen, this one is.
They are out of the pen.
Yeah, 7th loss is tied for most in the majors. That was when Matzik and Tuesday entered in the 8th inning of a 1-1 game, Charlie Morton's game. Walked the leadoff guy. Was charged with 2 runs without recording an out, but both the runs scored after Matzik gave up 2 singles and was replaced with bases loaded by Jones through a bases loaded wild pitch. That's a tough situation to put that guy in. Then issued a bases loaded walk. That was a disaster. But so Braves relievers were 21-9 last year. That's second best ERA in the league, 3.50. Second most innings in the majors because the starters weren't going deep. And they had a 1.28 whip. So this year they've already got 7 losses. They were 21-9 last year.
Yeah, I mean, how much that's what the offense was doing late though last year. There was probably
getting them off the hook. Yeah,
Gabe probably got off the hook a lot last year.
Yep, it was a combination of things for sure.
Yeah,
being a better, deeper bullpen, but also, even when they've kept it close,
they were getting wins.
They haven't got those. The Braves are 0-3 in extra inning games this year. And they don't have those comeback wins. Like they've got fewer comeback wins than their opponents have against them.
Yeah, and a couple of those L's were that extra inning rule too. It's really tough when you're not going well and you start an inning with a guy on second base, give up a bloop single and you get a loss. I like Matzik did that, gave up a single or a double and then punched out the side. And 99% of the time, that's a 0. You're putting up a 0 that day, and now you got an outing you feel bad about because you got the loss, and at least they're not earned runs.
Yeah. I don't think Snit and those guys have figured out exactly what they want to do. It seems to me they should have a plan, whether they're home or road, what they want to do in these situations, depending on who's up. Have like it on their, because they have charts for everything. They have little cards, but it seems they seem a little indecisive on what they're going to do with this extra inning rule.
I'd walk the first guy every time.
But what you're going to do offensively and defensively.
Yeah.
Because, why not walk the guy?
I'd walk him and try to set up a double play,
But
if he wants to be a hero.
It helps having a guy like Adrianza. You want him up there because you need to get the guy to third and get him in,
Yeah. Yeah. And most teams are just taking the 3 at bats. Not a lot of teams are bunting.
No, hardly. And I don't know why, because most teams, they can't bunt. Most guys can't bunt, especially against relievers who are throwing 98,
Or you feel like the guy on deck might punch out, so you want to just take your chance and try to get that single. But I guess the other side of that too is you feel like the other team's going to have a good chance to score at least one because they're starting the inning in the same way. So you almost want to try to put up a crooked number.
So that's where they got to have a body of work now that's a little longer, a little deeper, where they can run the analytics and tell you what's the best way to do this. What are your odds best doing?
It seems like the analytics say don't bunt, but as a reliever, I like the bunt when it was runner on first because you get that first free out, and that's a big one. But once you had that runner on first one out, I'd just try to walk the guy and set up a double play. Then you're a pitch away from getting out of it. It's different when they're starting on second and you give them an out, but it goes back to what I'm saying. If you got a guy on deck that you feel like he can put the ball in play, you force him to play infield in. I mean, I don't know. The analytics are smart, man.
Yeah.
But I don't think they consider the mental side.
There's just exactly. Here's a couple more stats that kind of show the difference between last year and kind of having a lesser bullpen and an offense that's been carried by Acuna and not much else. Braves are 0-5 when tied after 7 innings this year. They were 2-1 in those games last year. They're 0-7 when trailing after 6 innings. They were 5-24 last year. That doesn't sound too impressive, but that is when you can win 5 games like that when you're trailing after 6.
Yeah,
that's pretty good. They're 0-7 so far this year. They're 4-5 when they score first this year, after going 24-6 last year. So they'd have to go 20-1 the rest of the way to match last year.
Yeah, and I feel like they would have had a winning record even when they didn't score first last year. It just seemed to not even matter. That offense was
agreed.
I think they'll get back to it. I don't know if they'll ever be like they were last year because it just seemed like it's magic. But it'll turn around to the point where they start winning some of these close games they should be winning.
How about this one? They're 3-5 in 1-run games this year and 4-7 in 1 or 2-run games, right? A year ago, they were 11-6 in 1-run games, 14-7 in 1 or 2-run games last year. They're 4-7 in 1 or 2-run games this year, 14-7 last year.
And if they had the exact same numbers, but just different timing, offensively, and they were putting up putting the innings together, they could easily be 12-8 this year, or 10-8. I mean, those games can swing pretty easy.
They still have the 6th highest scoring average in the majors. It's just that they're not doing it. They're getting them in lumps, and getting big games, but they're not doing it in big situations and late in games like they did last year.
Yeah. But we talked about it last year all the time. It's like, how long can they keep this up? They did it the whole season.
You just start thinking, people say it all evens out, but it doesn't. Sometimes people have terrible luck for a year, and some people have magic for a year, man. And your personnel can also help with that in that regard. But weekend series, they got a team coming in they can beat up on, man. So this is a good time for the Braves to really make some hay in the division standings. They got Arizona coming in. They got Huascar Ynoa facing Luke Weaver, right-hander, in Friday's series opener. Saturday, you got the matchup of Drew Smiley against Madison Bumgarner, the lefty matchup of guys who've struggled, but it's Madison Bumgarner. I gotta admit, I thought the Braves should have signed him, and they are so fortunate that they did not, because he's been terrible since going to Arizona.
He looked pretty good against the Nationals in his last start.
Yeah, he got his ERA down from like 12 to 8.68.
Yeah, he had a pretty good start against them. You hope he doesn't get hot and he kind of continues doing what he was doing.
Right. He's 1-2 with an 8.68 ERA. Then you got Bryce Wilson starting against Zach Gallen in Sunday's series finale. So
that'll be a big start for Bryce.
Series. Huh?
It'll be a big start for Bryce.
Yeah, agreed. So you need to at least win 2 out of those 3, I think.
And too. He got shelled by the Cubs, but before that, it was like, man, he's filling in.
He's the best starter in the rotation before that. Yeah. His other 2 starts were terrific.
It's a big bounce back start for him.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll do this again on Monday. And that's it. Big series coming up. And man, for all the doom and gloom, it's like we said, there's still a game and a half out, man. Yeah. I know. But people are like ready to, all right, when does football start? Or, it's just not their year. And
it's just the way it's unfolded. If they just got their asses kicked in a few games and blew the other team out in another ones, but all of them have been high stress.
Yeah, that's true. All of them. All right. We'll do this again Monday. Thanks a lot, everybody. 755 is real. We're out.